And I'm Wendy.
And welcome to Beyond the Couch OT Stories podcast. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I am Wendy, and I have been an occupational therapist for about 14 years. And I truly love what I do. I work in multiple different settings. I work in home health. I've worked in a skilled nursing facility. I've also engaged in teaching. So I've seen several different aspects of occupational therapy, and I just really love the profession and what I'm able to do and help people and make a difference in their lives.
Okay, what is this podcast purpose, and what can listeners expect from this?
Okay, well, great. So I really want this podcast to be meaningful to people. Maybe they're struggling with their child who maybe is a picky eater. Maybe their older adult parent is not listening to them and they're being very unsafe walking around their house without the use of an assistive device like a cane or a walker. My intent with this podcast is to help provide solutions and options for individuals. And we can focus on different areas that you, the public, or whoever we bring on wants to focus on. Occupational therapy is a very broad category, and we can pretty much go anywhere and make a job for ourselves. And so, we do work in the school systems, in the skilled facilities. We do work in hospitals, home health, which is what I really enjoy doing. We do work in academia, teaching students to be occupational therapists. So there's a lot of populations that we work with. And so what I would really like to do is target specific areas and specific populations, maybe even some current trends that we're seeing in therapy. I would love to have some guest interviews on people, different OT professionals, maybe some different clients, educators. We just really want to explore the whole world of occupational therapy and be able to provide a service and advocate for occupational therapy as a whole. Maybe helping with some case studies, some real life stories. I think that reading stuff in a magazine or in a textbook is very one-sided. And I think that if we can bring individuals on this podcast that can share ideas and strategy, a community is better than one. So I feel that knowledge is power. And if we can bring people who've walked in your shoes or individuals who've lived that experience, I feel like that will be very meaningful to our audience. And then, we can talk about some different tools and strategies, maybe something that you've never heard about, or some different tips or strategies that can help our listeners, or maybe even new clinicians out there. Maybe you just graduated with your degree. So what can we do to help provide you with information? Also, we could talk about current events and research. Occupational therapy is evidence-based. And so what that means is we like to study stuff, and we go out there, we conduct research, and we use that knowledge that we gain from that research and implement new strategies and different techniques to help with different populations. Also, bringing people in to talk about, I had a stroke and this is what my experience has been. bringing, maybe some children in to talk with them to see kind of how OT has made a difference in their life. So that's kind of what I think the main focus for this podcast could be. We could definitely change based on what our listeners want to hear, but I think that's a good starting point for us.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
If y'all want to submit any questions or any topics that you're interested, feel free to comment down below, and also include any feedback and anything else that you would like to hear.
Yeah, and we would love to get feedback. Anything that maybe you would like to hear more of, maybe a particular topic, something that I've always wondered about. I think that would be really great to get interaction with different populations.
Okay. What are some of the materials and content that will be on this podcast?
Well, like I said before, just bringing in information regarding what is occupational therapy. I think that it's very misunderstood discipline. And number one, most people believe that, they probably haven't heard of what is occupational therapy. They've heard of physical therapy. And, occupational therapy is bringing meaning and purpose to people's lives. We do not focus on getting people back to work, whereas occupation is more of a general sense. What do you have to engage in on a regular basis? So maybe you are a wife and you've had a stroke and you're no longer able to cook meals for your husband. And this is something that is very meaningful and purposeful in your life. You dreamt of being able to get married and you ended up having a stroke. Occupational therapists can come in and give you different strategies and techniques and adaptive equipment to help you be as independent as possible. We can help with environmental modification. Do you need to change around your house so that you are able to stay in your house and be as independent as you possibly can be? Maybe you're an older adult, you're in your 70s or 80s. Maybe your kids are saying, hey, I really think it's time for you to go to a facility. And you're like, wait, I really want to stay in my house. An occupational therapist can come in and help you be as safe as possible and offer strategies and techniques and, different ways of looking at stuff. That's what our education is. That's what we're trained in. Occupational therapy was actually created in 1917. We helped soldiers from World War I readapt to life back after the war. And so it started with the arts and crafts movement and has evolved in 100 plus years. We're in 2024 and our profession's been around since 1917. So, and I think that one of our podcasts can be, let's talk about the history of occupational therapy, because there's not a lot of information out there. So I definitely think that can be a topic that we talk about on one of our shows.
Yeah, sounds like it would be good. Speaking of education, what are some of the books, articles, or other resources related to occupational therapy that you would recommend to either like people that are in school or they're just, from doctorate level to maybe people that are just curious about occupational therapy?
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of different information. There's obviously textbooks out there that they may be a little bit dry or boring, but I think that it provides a lot of knowledge that is out there. There is also, we are in the state of Texas, so I think that, if you were to check at your state level, they may have a state organization. I highly recommend that you check that out, because that's going to give you state specific guidelines and rules and regulations. They love, at least in Texas, they love to have different events that talk about what is occupational therapy. Some of them are free. Some of them you actually have to be a member of that organization. I highly recommend that you do get involved at your state level. The money that you spend towards your membership helps go to pay for advocating for our profession out there with the government, and making sure that we as a profession continue to have jobs out there for many different years and years in different professions. All you have to do is search occupational therapy resources. There is so much different resources that are out there, websites, videos. I love to go out there and search YouTube for occupational therapy videos. I am a teacher, and I can sit and talk about things all day long, but if I can show it in a video, maybe funny, maybe just in a different tone, students tend to listen to that a little bit better. So I think that if I can find different avenues, I think that is beneficial to helping people learn. Also, you can actually search occupational therapy in movies, and we're kind of getting out there a little bit and being talked about a little bit more, and in TV shows. And I'm like, woo woo, go OT, because I just don't feel that we're really talked about a lot in the public arena. So
yeah, I feel like every time I hear of therapy, it's either like speech or physical, often after an incident.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. When I reach out to patients and say, I'm the occupational therapist, they'll be like, oh, well, I've just had a therapist here. And I'm like, no, I'm different. And some of the times they react positively. Some of the times they are curious about what we do. So we put functional we put the fun in functional.
Yeah. So I heard that there are a couple different types of like OT and what y'all do. What are those?
Okay. So you're talking about the specific areas. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Asking. Okay. So a lot of the times there is, if I ask a class of 50 OT students, how many want to work in pediatrics? I'm going to say probably 30 will raise their hands. So pediatric occupational therapists are very, very popular. However, some people just do not want to work with children, and that's okay. We need therapists all over. We do have geriatric occupational therapists working with older adults. Something that I truly love is we work with individuals, whether it be at a hospital or in a skilled facility, an acute care facility after they've had an illness or an injury. And we can help get them ready for home. And then after they've gotten home, you're going to have an occupational therapist who's going to come in and actually assess their environment and how can we make the environment better. I had a patient recently who moved in with her daughter in a 2-story home, and the patient's bedroom was on the first floor. Well, she combined a whole apartment into one bedroom. And so part of my job was environmental modification. How can we make this safe, but yet, still be respectful that this is her space and her area? And, we were able to kind of go through that and talk about what do we need to have and what can we get rid of. And, I talked with the patient about it and said, okay, well, what do you think? How do you think this went? And she's like, I know that, my daughter loves me and my granddaughter loves me, but I feel like when you're asking me these same things or telling me these same things that maybe my family members have said to me, I feel like that you are genuinely concerned about my well-being, whereas they're just family members and trying to boss me around. And I get that a lot is, when the dynamic switches from a daughter to a caregiver. And so it changes a lot. Mental health is an area that, we can address. Those are just a few of the areas. Mental health is a very growing population. And it's simply that we're going to address the emotional and psychological aspect. That's the really great thing about being an occupational therapist is we really look for and are trained on, many different areas from the psychological, the mental health, the physiological, the health aspect of it. We can address a lot of different populations. And there are more areas than that. I just listed a couple there. So,
what are some of the common challenges OT professionals face and how do they overcome them?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say the number one challenge that we face is that simply people don't know who we are. They do not understand what a positive benefit occupational therapy can make to their lives. Instead of, just splitting the body in half and letting physical therapy take care of the lower half and OT take care of the upper half, let occupational therapy look at your whole being and you as an individual. And, we have this, what's called a practice framework. It's kind of like a framework of the areas that we address. So we can address health management. Why are you not taking your blood pressure? Why are you not monitoring your diabetes? We can work on medication management. We can work on ergonomics, how things are set up, safety awareness, balance, arm strengthening. We can address feeding, fine motor, bilateral coordination. There's just, the list is like 40 pages long of items that we can address in individuals. So I think that when patients do not allow us the opportunity to coming in and telling them this is what our clinical knowledge is, this is how we can help you as an individual, I think that that's the biggest challenge that we face. And I think that since COVID happened, there's been a lot of issues and struggles that individuals have faced regarding reimbursement for occupational therapy. And I think that has limited our role that we play in different areas and populations. And, I think that that needs to be overdone. I think that, people need to understand what benefit occupational therapists can provide to your life. If you were to have a hand injury, you would go to a certified hand therapist who is usually an occupational therapist. If you have a hip injury, that's when you would go to a physical therapist. So I feel like that understanding the value that everybody adds to the patient and the outlook, it's a big piece of pie, right? And so physical therapy is going to have their piece, occupational therapy is going to have their piece, and speech is going to have their piece. Everybody deserves a seat at the table to be heard equally, and so that we can help benefit our patients in the long run.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good outlook to see it, because I feel like sometimes with all these different medical fields and especially just the three therapies in general, it seemed like it kind of be like competition or something, but at the end, it's there. Y'all are all there to just help the patient in the end.
Yeah, and I think that physical therapy and occupational therapy are definitely pitted against each other, in the respects of, well, I'm the physical therapist, I need the most amount of visits, or I'm the occupational therapist, this patient doesn't walk, so what do you need to work on, and I think that it needs to be a balancing act that we do.
Yeah, totally. So this is the end of our first podcast episode. So in this episode, we viewed over multiple materials, educational materials, and Wendy here recommended books that anyone could read. We also covered, what the basics, what is OT, and the principles and goals of occupational therapy. And we also covered the specialty areas in OT, and also what were the challenges and how OTs overcome them. Thank you for listening to our first episode. If you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments below. And if you're interested in more, please follow and leave a review.
Yeah, and it's been great. I love sharing my love and my passion with you, and please let us know what other areas that you would like for us to delve into and for future episodes. Thanks.
Thank you.